Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, we are going to give you our 2023 tight end preview for the fantasy football season. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to be joined by Logan Glaser once again of RealTime Fantasy Sports. We're going to talk about our favorite tight ends this year, guys we're targeting, guys we're fading, some sleepers, rookies as well. So I'm going to bring Logan up right now. Logan, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Let's talk about this tight end position briefly before we get into our picks here. What's your thoughts initially when you think about tight end this year?
Well, the tight end position, honestly, I think was probably one of the most important last year. I think the winning player on the majority of teams last year was Travis Kelce. He absolutely dominated the position, absolutely blew out all the other tight ends in points scored and had so much value where he was being going at near the end of the first. But personally, this year, I'm going to be fading all the top tight ends. I know it's a bold strategy, but I probably won't be looking for a tight end until after round 8 this year.
So I kind of thought last year we had some candidates for breakout tight ends that were going to do really well. Didn't pan out that way for whatever reason. And I'm kind of with your thinking this year as well. I'm probably going to fade those top guys. I still think there's some guys that you can get in these middle rounds that are going to be pretty good this year. And I'm hoping it actually comes to fruition. So I'm kind of following that same strategy. I might, in a few drafts, get some of these elite guys just to see how it pans out. For the most part, I'm probably going to be waiting as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about our targets. So who is your target at tight end this year?
Yeah, my top target is going to be Evan Ingram. He's currently going near around round 9 in leagues. Similar players in that area is Odell Beckham, Dotson, Addison, and Kadarius Toney. So I really like him out of that bunch. I think I'm perfectly fine waiting on a tight end right until Evan Ingram in like round 9. Last year, he had 98 targets in 2022. That's remarkable for a tight end position. He has a extremely high ceiling, as we saw last year. He put up 39 fantasy points in week 14 last year, and he had a really good stretch near the end of the season, including a great playoff game for the Jags. It scares me a little bit with Ridley being added into that offense to take away some of the targets, but I think Ingram's still going to get a good fair share of targets in that high-powered offense.
I agree. I like Ingram as well this year. He was a guy I picked in a lot of leagues last year. And like you said, he was kind of a difference maker down the stretch for fantasy teams in the playoffs because he had some huge, huge games there at the end of the season. I think he's going to do well again this year. I like that call, Logan. All right, my target is Chig Okonkwo with the Tennessee Titans. He was the best rookie fantasy tight end last season, which was kind of a surprise. He was 25th overall in fantasy tight end scoring. Really good down the stretch as well, kind of like Ingram. He had double-digit fantasy points 4 of his last 6 games. He was really a top big play threat for the Titans, averaged an impressive 14.1 yards per reception. He's going to start from day one this year. They don't have much at receiver outside of Treylon Burks. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 fantasy tight end, and he's even going after Evan Ingram. You can get him pretty late, and I just love his value. I think he's going to be a great addition to fantasy teams this year. I think he's really going to be a good player. I'm all in on Okonkwo. All right, let's talk about fades. So who are you fading at the tight end position?
Yeah, my fade's going to be George Kittle. He exploded at the end of the season and probably caused a lot of teams to get into the playoffs with that. But I just don't like taking a top tight end this year. He's currently going in round 5. Players similar going right there is Calvin Ridley, Debo, and Justin Herbert. I would much rather go with one of those options and wait on a tight end. Evan Ingram actually had 13 more receptions than Kittle last year. He also saw about 15 more targets as well. So I really like going with Evan Ingram over paying for Kittle. So I'm personally going to be fading Kittle this year. I think San Francisco just has too many mouths to feed in that offense with CM McCaffrey there. You also got Debo and Ayuk that need looks as well. And the QB situation is a little bit uncertain heading into the season. If Purdy's going to be fully healthy to take over that role, how well he's going to do in that role in the second year. Also, there's also been talks of Sam Darnold might actually get some looks at that QB position, and then Trey Lance's health.
Yeah, QB spot is a real big concern for me. If Purdy's healthy from day one, I like Kittle a little more, but I agree. I think it's a concern for Kittle if Purdy's not starting under center for them right away. I think that could really impact his fantasy value. My fade at tight end is another guy kind of well regarded, and it's Darren Waller. He moves to New York this year, but man, his injury issues are a concern for me. He's played just 20 games the last 2 seasons because of injury. They're always a concern for Waller. It's kind of plagued him throughout his career. He moves to a new offense, an offense that doesn't throw as much as his previous team, the Raiders. I think he could see less targets. I know they don't have a great receiver room. I just still don't totally trust Waller, especially for his price tag. He's going just a couple picks after uh, George Kittle at that tight end spot. So you still have to use high draft capital to get him. I just don't think he's worth the risk because of all of his injury issues of the past and moving to a new team. So I'm fading Darren Waller.
Yeah, I like that call.
Let's talk about sleepers. So we both are talking about waiting on the tight end position. So I have a feeling these sleepers are guys we're going to target later in our draft. So who's your sleeper?
Yeah, my sleeper is Greg Dulcich for Denver. Denver's offense as a whole struggled a lot last year. So Dulcich only played in 10 games, but he was Denver's third leader in receiving yards. Only Judy and Sutton had more receiving yards than him. So he definitely got looks last year from Wilson in the games that he played. Again, only played in 10 games. And half the games he scored over 11 fantasy points, which is about what you can actually is great value for where he's currently going in drafts. And currently he's going in round 16. So you're actually looking at Dulcich as your backup tight end position. But if you're going to get half of his games that he's scoring over 11 points, you'll gladly take that from a tight end position. And I also don't think Denver's offense is going to struggle as much as they did last year. I think Russell Wilson's going to have a bounce back year. I don't think he's going to be stellar, but I think he's going to be solid enough where you can get production out of that receiving core.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by a lot of things in the Denver passing game just because of Sean Payton. He's got a great track record, and I think that offense is going to be better as well. And Dulcich is a guy I think could surprise also. So I like that call there, Logan. My sleeper tight end is Irv Smith. He moved to the Cincinnati Bengals this offseason. I think this is just a great landing spot for him. He's going to be the starter in an explosive Bengals passing game. He's been a bit of a bust to date, but I think this is just an ideal landing spot for him. I think he could really rack up the targets. Hayden Hurst had a good season as a starter last year for the Bengals, and I think Smith is a lot more talented than Hurst. He's a more of a big play threat. I think this could be the season that finally all comes together for Smith. You can get him really late, really cheap as well. So I'm targeting him as a number 2 tight end. I think he could end up being a real steal for fantasy teams this year.
Yeah, that's been my guy the past 2 or 3 years, and it's always burned me with his injuries, dropping wide open passes. But hopefully, this is the year that he finally hits it.
Are you back on the Smith train? Or
if I can get him in rounds 16 through 18, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll go on all the way until he retires.
It's always tough to go on. You go in all in on players, and you just feel good about them. They don't produce. It's always tough to go back to them. But some guys,
it sure is.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about rookies. There's actually some really good rookie tight ends this year. It's always kind of a interesting position to target for fantasy teams because there's a history of rookie tight ends not doing well at the start of their careers. Kind of a tough position to learn, but I think there's some talented guys this year. Who's your rookie that you like?
Yeah, you got probably 3 or 4 rookie tight ends that can make an impact this year. And the one that I'm going to be targeting is Sam Laporta for Detroit. I think he's going to be starter from day one, and it's an explosive offense. So he's a recent graduate from Iowa, and Iowa tight ends in the past couple of years, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, and Noah Fant. 3 NFL tight ends coming all from Iowa. And some people are saying Sam Laporta might be the best out of those 3, which would be remarkable given that Kittle and Hawkinson are probably the 4th or 5th best tight ends currently in the NFL for fantasy purposes. But Detroit's kind of been flexing him out to a wide receiver position, and they don't have a clear number 2 until Jameson Williams comes back in week 7. So I expect Laporta to kind of get involved quickly in that offense. And again, he's going to be starting from day one, so he can put up some good fantasy value with a high scoring offense.
Yeah, tight end U is Iowa. Definitely. They produce some just enormous fantasy tight ends. I'm intrigued by Laporta too. My tight end, a rookie tight end, is the guy that was picked first in the class, and that's Dalton Kincaid. used a first-round pick on him. Buffalo did. He immediately becomes a starter in a high-powered offense. They're lining him up all over the field. Gabe Davis has not been great as the number 2 receiver, so I think there's somebody there. There's some targets to be taken in the Bills' passing game behind Stephon Diggs, and I think Kincaid could really do a great job. Top athlete. He runs great routes, can be a mismatch in the middle of the field. He has great speed for the tight end position as well. I think he's going to rack up the targets, have a lot of touchdowns in this offense. He could really be a top 10 fantasy tight end his rookie season. I know, again, rookies at the tight end spot can be a little hit or miss, but I like Kincaid. I just think this is a great fit for him. And the main reason is I just don't trust Gabe Davis. And you look at the targets available after Stephon Diggs, and that's a lot if Davis is hit or miss again. And I think Kincaid's going to have a really good rookie season.
Yeah, I really like that pick with Kincaid.
All right, Logan, that's our tight end preview for 2023. We've hit all the positions now. It's been a lot of fun talking about them the last couple weeks. You can look at all these in our draft guide. We have all these video ups in there. It's totally free. We have an app as well. A lot of great content in there. And don't forget about our games too, our contests this year, $500,000 fantasy championship, best ball championship, all sorts of stuff going off at RealTime Fantasy Sports right now, right?
Yeah, drafts are definitely starting to fill up. We're about 20% full with the fantasy championship, so don't wait on that. Best ball championship's about 22% full. That should sell out a couple weeks before the season starts, so make sure to get involved with that.
Yeah, and remember, just go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link, and you do not have to draft right away. You can sign up and draft later if you want to draft closer to the start of the season. But like you said, they're filling up quick already. It's a record pace for us in terms of sales for these big contests. So get in them sooner than later.
For sure.
All right. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.